Hi everyone, this is Oliver Kovács. In this tutorial series I'll show you how to create your first few simple but great pieces. Don't worry, it's easier than you think. I'll walk you through every step. Let's get started. Let's start from the beginning. In this lesson, I'll help you understand the basic music theory you need to start composing your own piece. If you already know the basics of music theory, feel free to skip this part, but in my opinion, it's worth staying and reviewing them. In the next episodes, I'll show you how to create simple music pieces in different styles and moods, so stay tuned. The staff has 5 lines and 4 spaces. Each line and space can hold a note. These notes match the white keys on the piano and repeat over and over: C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Let's take a look at the distances between the notes. To notate the black keys on the piano, we use something called accidentals. There are 5 types of accidentals. A sharp raises a note by a half step. A double sharp raises a note by a whole step. A flat lowers a note by a half step. A double flat lowers a note by a whole step. A natural cancels any previous accidentals. In music, note durations tell us how long each note should be held. Here are the most common values. The whole note is the longest standard note. The half note is half the length of a whole note. The quarter note is 1/4 of a whole note. The eighth note is 1/8 of a whole note. The 16th note is 1/16 of a whole note. Just for clarification, 8 notes have 1 flag without a group, or 1 beam if it grouped. 16th notes have 2 flags, or 2 beams if grouped, and so on. In music, rest is a symbol that tells the performer to be silent for a certain amount of time. Just like notes show when to play a sound, rest show when not to. Each type of rest has a specific shape and duration, like the quarter rest, which lasts as long as a quarter note, or the whole rest, which lasts as long as a whole note. Clefs indicate specific notes on the staff. There are 2 main clefs, the treble clef and the bass clef. The bass clef marks the position of F, while the treble clef shows the position of G. Scientific pitch notation is a system used to identify the pitch of notes by indicating their octave. The lowest A on the piano is called A0, while the lowest C is C1. The next C is C2, and so on. The C near the middle of the piano is known as C4. What a surprise, this is called middle C. According to SPN, the previously mentioned F and G are F3 and G4. In written music, measures, also called bars, help organize rhythms into regular, manageable groups. Each measure contains a specific number of beats determined by the time signature. A time signature is written as two numbers, one on top of the other. The top number tells you how many beats are in each measure, and the bottom number indicates the note value that gets one beat. For example, in 4/4 time, there are 4 beats per measure, and the quarter note gets 1 beat. In 3/4 time, there are 3 beats per measure, with the quarter note still getting 1 beat. Time signatures help shape the feel and flow of the music. We'll explore them in more depth later, including other types of meters and how they influence musical phrasing. A generic interval tells us how many lines or spaces there are between two notes on the staff. It simply counts the basic distance between them. For example, if both notes are on the same line or space, that's a unison. If they are next to each other, like from C to D, that's a second, and so on. The generic intervals are unison or first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and octave. Generic intervals don't take accidentals into account. That's where specific intervals come in. Specific intervals can be major, minor, diminished, augmented, or perfect. There are 4 perfect intervals: the unison, the fourth, the fifth, and the octave. We measure the distance between notes in semitones. To do this, we count all keys, both white and black, on the piano between two notes. For example, between C and F, there are 5 semitones. Perfect intervals have diminished, augmented, and of course perfect forms, while the other intervals have major and minor versions, and they also have diminished and augmented forms. A diminished version is always a half step smaller than a perfect one, and an augmented is always a half step larger. Similarly, a major is always a half step larger than a minor. For example, a perfect fifth is 7 semitones, and an augmented fifth consists of 8, while a diminished fifth consists of 6. It's important to note that unison and octave have only perfect forms. Another example, the major sixth is 9 semitones, while the minor is 8. Now some important things to clarify. Not only do perfect intervals have diminished and augmented forms. For example, the interval from C to A is a major sixth. If you raise A to A sharp, you get an augmented sixth. This augmented sixth has the same number of half steps as a minor seventh, so they sound the same, but they are written and named differently. This is called being enharmonically equivalent. When we play more than 2 notes at the same time, we get chords. The most basic type of chord is the triad, which is made up of exactly 3 notes. There are 6 types of triads. The major triad consists of a root note, a major third, and a perfect fifth. It sounds happy and bright. The minor triad consists of a root note, a minor third, and a perfect fifth. It sounds sad or emotional. The diminished triad consists of a root note, a minor third, and a diminished fifth. It creates tension. The augmented triad consists of a root note, a major third, and an augmented fifth. It sounds strange and mysterious. The suspended second triad consists of a root note, a major second, and a perfect fifth. The suspended fourth triad consists of a root note, a perfect fourth, and a perfect fifth. Suspended triads sound open and unresolved, creating a sense of anticipation. Finding the inversions of a chord is relatively straightforward. The root position is the chord's natural form. In the first inversion, the third becomes the lowest note. To achieve this, move the root up an octave. For the second inversion, move the third up an octave, making the fifth the lowest note. Remember, the number of inversions for a chord is always one less than the number of its notes. A scale is a set of notes in a specific order. The most common scale is the major scale. It follows this pattern of steps. The A minor scale includes exactly the same notes as the C major, but it starts with A instead of C. The major scale sounds much brighter and more optimistic than the minor scale. This difference in mood comes mainly from the different patterns of whole and half steps. In a natural minor scale, the half step between the second and the third degrees create a darker, more melancholic feeling. Of course, we can start a major or minor scale on any note other than C or A, but in that case, we should use the corresponding accidentals. The minor scale has two variations, the harmonic and the melodic minor scale. In the harmonic minor scale, the seventh note is raised by a half step. With this change, a half step appears between the seventh and the first note. But in this case, there is a gap, an augmented second interval between the sixth and seventh notes. If we raise the sixth note by a half step as well, we get the melodic minor scale. All videos on this channel are free, but if you'd like to support my channel, you can do so by joining my Patreon page or even buying me a coffee. Of course, I always appreciate positive comments, likes and shares. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for your support.